I always thought parents were supposed to be proud when their kid graduated. Turns out, mine had other plans. My name's Lena, and I grew up in a small Ohio town where everyone knew everything, especially about my brother, Matt. He was the golden boy. My parents' pride and joy. The one they'd brag about in every church potluck and family barbecue. I didn't hate him. Not at first. But growing up in his shadow taught me what invisibility felt like. When I made the honor roll, Mom said, "Matt got that too, remember?" When I got into college, Dad smiled and asked, "Did you tell your brother? Maybe he can help you pick a major." So, when my graduation day came, I expected at least some excitement. I'd worked part-time jobs, pulled all-nighters, survived finals alone. It wasn't just a degree, it was proof I could build something for myself. The night before the ceremony, I called Mom to remind her about the time. She laughed. "Oh honey, about that, something's come up." I didn't know then that something would change everything. The next morning, my dorm room felt strangely quiet. Everyone else was getting ready, curling hair, steaming gowns, taking pictures with their parents. My phone buzzed once. A text from Mom. "Mom, sweetheart, we're so proud of you. But Matt just got promoted. We're throwing him a dinner tonight. You understand, right?" I read it 3 times, numb. I wanted to believe it was a joke. But she typed a smiley face at the end. By the time I walked across the stage that afternoon, the seats where my family should have been were empty. No cheers, no camera flashes. Just silence. When my name was called, Lena Carter, Bachelor of Science in Marketing, I heard polite applause from strangers. I smiled anyway, holding back the sting in my throat. After the ceremony, friends posed with their parents for photos. I stood by a brick wall and asked a classmate's mom to take one for me. She said, "Your family couldn't make it?" I forced a laugh. "They're busy." That night, I sat in my car outside the restaurant where they were celebrating Matt. I could see them through the window, smiling, toasting, proud. That's when I promised myself they'd never forget this day again. The next week, Mom called as if nothing had happened. Her voice was cheerful. "So, how was graduation? You looked beautiful in the pictures you sent." I stared at the phone, my hand tightening around it. "It was fine," I said. "How was Matt's dinner?" "Oh, wonderful," she said. His boss was there. They even gave him a watch. Can you believe that? "We're so proud." I could almost hear her smile through the line, warm, glowing, and entirely unaware of the hole she'd carved into me. I hung up early, blaming a bad signal. That night, I lay awake staring at my degree on the wall. I'd earned it alone. Every late night, every dollar, every ounce of energy. And they'd missed it. Not because of an emergency. Because my brother got a raise. Something inside me shifted then. It wasn't just anger, it was clarity. If they valued success so much, I'd give them a show they couldn't stop talking about. Not for their pride. For their lesson. I moved back to my hometown that summer, renting a small apartment above a bakery. Mom was thrilled. "We'll see you all the time," she said, as if we were a picture-perfect family again. Matt had just bought a new SUV, and my parents couldn't stop bragging about how responsible he was now. Meanwhile, I was applying for marketing jobs, quietly, strategically. At one interview, the CEO asked, "What drives you, Lena?" I smiled. Being underestimated. By July, I landed a position at a growing PR firm downtown. The pay was modest, but I knew how to stretch it. I worked hard, stayed late, volunteered for extra projects, made connections. And soon, opportunities started coming my way. The kind Matt never saw coming. I began attending business mixers where local entrepreneurs gathered, including people my parents admired from church. When they saw me there, confident and poised, it was the first time I saw uncertainty in their eyes. But that was only the beginning. The real plan was still forming, slow, careful, patient. A few months later, I got promoted. My boss, a sharp woman named Dana, called me into her office. "You've got a good head for strategy," she said. "I want you to lead the town's annual business gala this fall." The gala was a big deal: investors, community leaders, local press. It was the kind of event my parents worshipped. That night, I called Mom to tell her the news. "Oh, honey, that's great," she said, distracted. "But did you hear? Matt's company might make him regional manager next year." "Of course. Matt again." I smiled to myself. "That's nice," I said softly. Because this time, I wasn't disappointed, I was ready. The gala was my stage now. And I was going to make sure that when my parents heard my name, it wouldn't just be through gossip. It would be front-page news. They'd missed my graduation. But they were going to see this, and they'd never forget what it felt like. The months leading up to the gala were chaos: meetings, sponsors, press calls. I loved every minute of it. For once, I wasn't in anyone's shadow. My name started popping up in local news: young PR lead takes charge of Maplewood's annual business gala. My parents saw the article. Mom texted, "So proud of you, sweetheart. You're really making a name for yourself." I didn't respond right away. Pride was easy when it was public. But I remembered sitting in that empty graduation hall, and I knew words meant nothing. I wasn't looking for pride anymore. I was building a reckoning. Because the gala's main sponsor? Matt's company. When the partnership list landed on my desk, I saw his firm's name glowing at the top: Carter and Company. Logistics. My lips curled into a slow smile. It was almost poetic. They skipped my graduation for his success. Now his success would lead them right to mine. They just didn't know it yet. I reached out to Matt's office, keeping it strictly professional. "Good afternoon," I said when his secretary answered. "This is Lena Carter from PR Group. I'm handling event coordination for the business gala." There was a pause, then she said, "Oh, Matt's sister. I'll put you through." He sounded surprised when he picked up. "Lena? Wow, I didn't know you were running this thing." "Neither did they," I said quietly. He laughed. "Mom and Dad will love that. They're coming, you know." Perfect. We discussed sponsorship details, booth placement, branding, guest tables. When I hung up, I leaned back in my chair. This wasn't about pettiness. It was about equilibrium, the kind that only comes when people finally see you. For years, I'd been the invisible daughter. Now I had a stage, a microphone, and their full attention waiting in the front row. And I was going to use all of it. The idea hit me late one night while reviewing the gala program. We had a community excellence segment, an award given to a local leader who'd shown dedication, perseverance, and impact. Normally, the committee picked from nominations. But as project lead, I had influence. Quiet influence. When Dana asked if I had someone in mind for the award, I smiled. "I do," I said. We'd skip the usual announcement and reveal it live during the gala, in front of the town's most respected people, the press, and yes, my family. It wasn't revenge through cruelty. It was revenge through truth. Because my brother might have a shiny title, but I had receipts, literal and metaphorical, of everything I'd done alone. Every unpaid favor. Every ignored call. Every skipped milestone. This time, I would write the speech. And it wouldn't be the one they expected. The night of the gala arrived like electricity in the air. The hotel ballroom shimmered with gold and white lights, tables dressed in linen, the air humming with polite chatter and ambition. I wore a simple black gown, elegant, sharp. When my parents walked in with Matt, I felt my heart thump once, then settle. Mom looked around proudly. "This is incredible," she said. "I can't believe you're behind all this." Matt added, "You've really come up in the world, sis." His tone was almost patronizing, like I'd just learned to tie my shoes. I smiled. "Thanks, Matt. You might want to stay until the end. There's a surprise you'll like." He laughed. "You're full of surprises." Oh, I was. When the lights dimmed and the event began, I took the stage to polite applause. My voice was steady. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we celebrate dedication, resilience, and the people who remind us what true commitment looks like." I saw my parents smile proudly from their table. If only they knew who those words were for. Midway through the event, I called for the final segment, the Community Excellence Award. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, but my voice never wavered. "This award," I said, "is for someone who taught me that hard work doesn't always get applause. That sometimes, the people who give the most get noticed the least." The audience listened closely. My parents looked at each other, confused. This person worked quietly, often overlooked, but never stopped giving. Even when the people closest to them couldn't see it. Mom's smile faltered. Matt straightened in his chair. I paused just long enough. Then said, "Please join me in honoring the quiet achievers, and everyone who's ever been told they're not enough. By remembering this, what's invisible today will shine tomorrow." The crowd applauded, and I felt their eyes on me. They thought it was a speech. But my parents knew better. Because the truth hit harder than any award could. And it was delivered with a smile. After the applause faded, I stepped off stage. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but release. Dana caught me near the exit. "Beautifully done," she said. "You hit something real tonight." I wasn't trying to, I lied. But deep down, I knew that speech had struck nerves, the kind that don't stop aching easily. When I glanced across the room, my parents were whispering to each other. Mom looked pale, Dad was staring into his drink. Matt clapped half-heartedly, avoiding my gaze. For once, I didn't chase their approval. I didn't need to. The next morning, an article appeared in the local paper. Gala speech moves audience, PR lead highlights the unseen struggles of everyday achievers. The phone calls started pouring in. Companies wanted me for their campaigns. Schools asked me to speak to their graduates. And at home? Silence. The kind that says we heard you, and we can't unhear it. A week later, Mom called. Her voice was hesitant, brittle. "Your speech was powerful," she said. "Everyone's been talking about it." "Good," I said simply. She cleared her throat. "Your brother's company wasn't too happy about it, though. They thought it sounded like criticism." I smiled into the receiver. Maybe they should have listened closer. Silence. Then, softly, "You embarrassed us, Lena." "No, Mom," I said. "You did that yourselves, when you chose his promotion over my graduation." Her breath caught. "That was years ago." "Exactly," I said. "And you still don't get it." After I hung up, I sat by the window, watching rain slide down the glass. For the first time, I didn't feel small or guilty. I felt grounded. They wanted the world to see Matt's success. Now the world saw mine. And it wasn't built on favors, just fire and patience. I didn't mean for things to spiral. But truth has a way of echoing louder than lies. By the end of the month, Matt's company lost their main local sponsor, one that had attended the gala and didn't like what they'd learned about how Carter and company treated family employees. Rumors spread that his promotion had come through Dad's friend on the board. It wasn't my doing. I didn't have to lift a finger. When your foundation's built on favoritism, one good storm does the rest. Mom sent another text, "We're going through a hard time. Could we talk?" I typed, then deleted my reply 3 times before sending. "You should have talked to me that night at graduation." I meant it. Not out of bitterness, but clarity. Sometimes silence is the only language people finally understand. Autumn came early that year. The trees outside my window turned red, then gold, like the world was catching fire one leaf at a time. Work was thriving. My firm offered me a new position, regional PR director. It came with a raise, a corner office, and speaking engagements across the state. I accepted without hesitation. The news made its way back to town. I didn't tell my parents, others did. When I came home one weekend, I ran into Mrs. Dalton from church. "Your mother must be so proud," she said kindly. "You've become quite the inspiration." I smiled. "She hasn't said much." Mrs. Dalton frowned. "Well, maybe she's speechless." Maybe. Or maybe pride doesn't come easy when you have to admit you were wrong. That evening, I received a letter from Matt. No greeting. No excuses. Just one line. "You made your point. I hope it was worth it." I folded it neatly, tucked it into my desk, and whispered, "It was." Thanksgiving came around, and Mom called again. "Come for dinner," she said quietly. "Let's just be together." Part of me wanted to decline. But another part, the part that still ached for peace, said yes. When I arrived, the house felt smaller than I remembered. Dad was carving turkey, Mom was nervously setting the table, and Matt sat quietly, scrolling through his phone. Dinner was stiff, silent. Finally, Mom sighed. "We didn't mean to hurt you, Lena. We thought we were doing what was best." I looked at her, steady. "You were doing what was easiest. There's a difference." Her eyes filled. "You've changed." "I had to," I said. "You taught me that." The rest of the meal passed in near silence. But when I left that night, I didn't feel empty. Because for the first time, I realized something important. I wasn't trying to make them see me anymore. I already saw myself. By winter, things in Maplewood had changed. Matt had been demoted after the sponsor pulled out, and the town was whispering about the Carters' bad luck. I didn't celebrate. I just watched quietly. Mom called less. When she did, her voice was softer, almost uncertain. "How are you doing, honey?" she'd ask, as if testing the waters. "Good," I'd say. "Busy." We talked about the weather, never the past. And that was fine with me. But one afternoon, I ran into Dad at the hardware store. He looked tired, older. "Lena," he said, forcing a smile. "You've done well." I nodded. "I have." He hesitated. "You always did work harder than anyone else." I guess we just didn't see it soon enough. For a moment, the anger in me eased. Then he added, "Matt's struggling. Maybe you could help him find something?" I almost laughed. They'd missed my graduation but wanted a rescue for their golden boy. I smiled politely. "I'm sure he'll figure it out." Because this time, I wasn't fixing anyone's mess but my own peace. A few weeks later, my company hosted a charity gala, smaller than the last, but still important. I wasn't planning to invite my family. I'd outgrown needing their applause. But fate had a funny sense of timing. The local newspaper ran a piece about the event. Regional Director Lena Carter to lead fundraiser for underprivileged students. That headline hit home harder than I expected. Underprivileged students. Kids like me once, invisible, trying to prove themselves. When Mom saw it, she called immediately. "We'd love to come," she said eagerly. To support you. I paused. This isn't a family dinner, Mom. It's work. I know, she said quietly. But maybe we can start there. Something in her tone was different, not defensive, not proud, just human. So I agreed. But I didn't do it for them. I did it for closure, the quiet kind that doesn't need witnesses. The night of the fundraiser was beautiful. Soft lights, a live band, tables filled with community donors. When my parents walked in, I felt a flicker of something between nostalgia and peace. Mom looked around in awe. This is amazing, she whispered. Dad nodded, his voice low. You built this, didn't you? I did, I said simply. Halfway through the night, I took the stage to thank the donors. As I spoke about helping students who'd been overlooked, I caught my mother's eyes. She was crying. Not from guilt, I think, but from realization. After the event, she hugged me for the first time in years. I'm sorry we didn't see you sooner, she whispered. You deserved better. For once, I didn't pull away. Because forgiveness isn't weakness, it's release. And I'd carried that weight long enough. A few months passed, and life settled into a calm rhythm. Matt found a smaller job at another company, humbler this time. We didn't talk much, but when we did, the sharp edge between us had dulled. He called one afternoon. Hey! I know we weren't great to you. But you proved us all wrong. I mean that. I smiled faintly. Thanks, Matt. Then he said something that stayed with me. You didn't just prove us wrong. You proved yourself right. It was strange, the brother who once stood on a pedestal now sounded grounded. Human. We ended the call with an awkward laugh. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the forgotten sibling. I felt like the strong one who survived being unseen and still chose to rise. Sometimes, revenge doesn't end in fire. Sometimes, it ends in growth and silence that finally feels like peace. That summer, I returned to my old college as a guest speaker. Walking onto that same stage I'd once crossed alone felt surreal. This time, the audience cheered for me. I spoke about resilience, about how sometimes, the people who should believe in you most will be the last to notice. But that doesn't mean you stop, I said. It means you rise so high they can't look past you anymore. Afterward, a student came up, eyes shining. Your story sounds like mine, she said softly. My parents missed my graduation, too. I smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then make them remember, not with anger, but with excellence. When I walked off stage, I spotted Mom and Dad in the back row, clapping quietly. They hadn't told me they were coming. And for the first time, I didn't care whether it was guilt or pride that brought them. Because the girl who once cried outside a restaurant had become someone unforgettable. Months passed, and life became softer. The bitterness that once filled my chest was gone, replaced by something steadier, quiet pride. I'd bought a small house on the edge of town. Mornings smelled like coffee and freedom. Evenings hummed with peace instead of pressure. One Sunday, Mom stopped by unannounced. She stood at the doorway, holding a box. Old photos, she said. I thought you might want them. We sat on the couch flipping through memories, birthdays, school plays, holidays. In every picture, Matt was front and center. I was always to the side, smiling small. Mom stared at one photo, me holding my kindergarten certificate, her gaze fixed on Matt in the background. Her voice cracked. I don't know how we missed you, Lena. I looked at her gently. You didn't miss me, Mom. You just weren't looking. She wiped her eyes. Well, I see you now. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And that was enough. Spring came early, painting Maplewood in color again. At work, we launched a scholarship fund for young women who'd put themselves through college without support. We called it the Unseen Scholarship. Dana smiled when I pitched the name. That's powerful, Lena. What made you think of it? Experience, I said simply. The program took off. The local paper ran a feature titled, From Forgotten Graduate to Community Leader. Mom framed it before I did. When I visited one weekend, it was hanging in their hallway, right where the family portraits used to be. Matt came by, carrying his toddler son. He's been asking about Aunt Lena, he said with a grin. I held the little boy close, and for the first time in years, my family's laughter didn't sting. It just existed. Sometimes, peace isn't an apology. It's a hallway that tells a different story now. That summer, I hosted a dinner at my home, small, simple, full of people I loved. Dana came. So did a few coworkers, and even Mrs. Dalton from church. When my parents arrived, Mom brought pie, and Dad insisted on helping set the table. There was no tension, no pretending, just quiet understanding filling the spaces where judgment used to live. At one point, Dad raised his glass. To Lena, he said. For teaching us what success really looks like. Everyone clinked glasses. I smiled, humbled. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it hadn't been for a long time. It was about balance. They'd missed my graduation once, chasing someone else's success. But now, as laughter warmed my dining room, I realized something simple but profound. They hadn't missed me. Not anymore. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood by the window, looking at the stars. The same sky had watched me cry outside that restaurant years ago. Now it watched me smile. I thought about that girl, the one who waited in her car, diploma on her lap, heartbreaking quietly. She didn't know that pain would become her strength. That being unseen would one day make her unforgettable. I whispered to the empty room, we did it. Because the truth was, I hadn't just proven my parents wrong. I'd proven to myself that my worth never needed their permission. And if they ever forgot again, they had a whole town and a scholarship to remind them. A year later, my alma mater invited me back to deliver the keynote address at graduation. When I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of hopeful faces, I felt time fold in on itself. My parents didn't come to my graduation, I said softly. The audience fell silent. They had their reasons. But it taught me something. The people who overlook you today are the ones who'll remember you tomorrow, when you no longer need their applause. I paused, letting it sink in. And when that moment comes, don't gloat. Just smile. Because you didn't need revenge. You needed growth. When the ceremony ended, I saw them, Mom, Dad, Matt, standing in the crowd, clapping with tears in their eyes. I smiled back. Not to forgive, not to forget, but to move forward. Because the best revenge isn't making them remember what they did. It's making sure you'll never be defined by it again. And as I walked off that stage, the applause this time wasn't for their pride, it was for my peace.